In 1947, 2 years after Murder, He Says hit theaters, Fred MacMurray appeared with his frequent co-star, Claudette Colbert, in the Universal comedy The Egg and I. The movie also featured MacMurray's Murder, He Says co-star, Marjorie Main, playing a character highly reminiscent of the part she played in Murder, He Says, at least in appearance and mannerism. The primary difference between the characters was that the new character was not the murderous head of a hillbilly family of criminals. She was Ma Kettle, the cantankerous head of a hillbilly family of ne'er-do-wells. The popularity of both Ma and Pa Kettle, played by Percy Kilbride, in The Egg and I, led to a series of highly successful low-budget movies featuring the Kettles. Up next, our star of the month, Fred MacMurray, is back in a romantic comedy trying to divorce Paulette Goddard, who has other ideas.
Most people know my father, Fred MacMurray, as the lovable TV dad of my 3 sons, or from the family films he made for Disney. As a child, I was one of those people. It wasn't until I was in film school that I learned how diverse his film career was from the 1930s through the 1950s.
Everybody thinks they look like a movie star.
After I saw Double Indemnity for the first time, imagine my surprise when I discovered my sweet, innocent dad could be a convincing bad guy. I told him, I knew you were good, but not that good. Before his iconic roles, Frederick Martin MacMurray left his Wisconsin home and traveled as a saxophonist and vocalist with dance and vaudeville bands. In 1933, Dad's band, the California Collegians, appeared in the Broadway show Roberta, starring Bob Hope. Dad and Bob became lifelong friends, and when the show headed to Los Angeles, Bob encouraged Dad to audition for Paramount Pictures. He said they needed some tall guys in Hollywood, and at 6'3", Dad had a commanding presence.
You think you're the head man around here?
Bob arranged for the screen test, and he even loaned Dad his top hat. Despite never having had a formal acting class or lesson, Dad landed a contract with Paramount Pictures, and in his first year, 1935, he made an astounding 7 films. He learned on the set from the gifted Katharine Hepburn.
Don't let's talk about me. Let's talk about you. What kind of man are you?
And from his 2 favorite leading ladies, Claudette Colbert and Carole Lombard.
I'm supposed to kiss the bride.
By 1943, he was one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood. Audiences adored him. They related to the directness, the honesty, and the truthfulness he projected on screen. Dad was the kind of fella you wanted to invite home for dinner.
Oh, Daddy.
But the home front changed. After World War II, audiences demanded more realism. Movies took a darker turn, and the image of the affable Fred MacMurray seemed a bit out of place. But it was the brilliant Billy Wilder who cast Dad against type as Walter Neff, the fast-talking salesman in Double Indemnity.
They'll hang you just as sure as 10 dimes will buy $1. And I don't want you to hang, baby.
Daddy was hesitant about taking the role, telling Wilder, I'm a saxophone player, acting in light comedies. The role of Neff? That requires acting. Wilder persisted, and Dad played Walter Neff, one of his greatest screen performances, and the role changed his career.
Yes, I killed him. I killed him for money and for a woman. And I didn't get the money, and I didn't get the woman.
Double Indemnity proved my dad was capable of taking on a variety of roles. He continued to explore intense dramas, saddled up for westerns, but never strayed too far from his comedic roots.
Well, Cousin Bobby, but...
Very funny.
Dad continued to grow as an actor, and in 1954, he delivered another signature performance as Tom Kiefer, the deceitful Navy lieutenant in the Caine Mutiny. Look at the scene with Jose Ferrer. Dad shows remarkable restraint.
Now here's to the real author of the Caine Mutiny.
On the outside, he's stoic, and physically very still.
Here's to you, Mr. Kiefer.
But look into his eyes. You can see he is crumbling emotionally on the inside.
If you want to do anything about it, I'll be outside.
It's fascinating to watch, and you can't take your eyes off him. Eventually, Dad would team up again with Billy Wilder as the philandering executive in the Oscar-winning film The Apartment. This was Dad at his naughtiest.
You know, you see a girl a couple of times a week just for laughs, and right away they think you're going to divorce your wife. No, I ask you, is that fair?
No, sir, it's very unfair, especially to your wife.
Yeah.
Even though Dad did play some difficult characters in his films, they always had a few redeeming qualities, but not the character of Sheldrake. It was hard to feel any compassion for that character.
Oh, I have a present for you. I didn't quite know what to get you. Besides, it's kind of awkward for me shopping, so here's $100. You go and buy yourself something, huh?
Because Dad portrayed Sheldrake so effortlessly, it was polarizing for his fans. After the film was released, I remember visiting Disneyland with my family. A woman approached Dad and asked, "Are you Fred MacMurray?" Dad took off his hat and replied, "Yes, ma'am, I am." Then she angrily hit Dad with her purse. She said, "I took my children to see The Apartment." "Mr. MacMurray, that was not a Disney film." Daddy quietly replied, "No, ma'am, it wasn't." I'll never forget what happened next. He turned to my mother, who also happened to be the beautiful actress June Haver, and said, "Junie, that's it." From that moment on, Dad never played another bad guy.
I hereby swear to uphold and enforce the laws of this community of the United States of America, so help me God.
I'm so lucky to have known a man like that in my lifetime. He was incandescent, gifted, a natural. He concentrated on bringing laughter into audiences' hearts. I'm so proud of him, proud of the films he left us, proud of what a wonderful father he was.
I love you. I always have. And I'll always will.
Shortly after my father died, I asked my mom why she had fallen in love with him. And she looked me square in the eye and without a blink replied, "He knew who he was. He was never in doubt of who he was." For Turner Classic Movies, I'm Kate MacMurray.
Star of the Month, Fred MacMurray. Wednesdays this month on Turner Classic Movies. TCM Big Screen